Secret in Soaphead Bay by Debra Bellera. Chapter 1, Moving In. Once upon a time, not so long ago, located in the seaside town called Soaphead Bay, stood the most beautiful three-story Victorian house. The outside walls were painted pale yellow, and the gingerbread violet trim decorating the edge of the roof added much charm. A garden variety of flowers blanketed the landscape property, sending to any nearby nose the perfumed scent of roses, lilacs, daisies, and daffodils. This unique home proudly stood out from among all the other neighborhood homes as it nestled on a pretty tree-lined quiet street. The townsfolk often walked by observing the winding stone pathway, drawing their gaze up towards the huge, cozy, white wraparound porch. Some nosy neighbors were very curious, hoping to get a glimpse at the new family who decided to make this picturesque fishing village known as Soaphead Bay their permanent home. Arriving at the house at the crack of dawn, the parents wanted to greet the moving van in a timely manner. Oblivious to the neighborhood buzz, Mr. and Mrs. Boynton, along with their 3 children, concentrated only on settling into their lovely home. Monday morning welcomed the day with melodious sounds of chirping birds, seagulls in flight, the smell of fresh salty air, and the bright sunshine smiling down on the glistening dew grass. The onlookers were peeking through each of their own colorful window treatments, not to mention spying through their slightly open front doors. Everyone was so thrilled and excited to see the lengthy blue and gold labeled out-of-town truck turn the corner and head slowly down the street towards their home. Comfortably sitting on the top step of the porch, with arms hugging her bent knees, Adela Boynton gently nudged her husband Joe to call attention to the arrival of the driver. Adela was thinking how handsome her husband looked in his khaki shorts and red-striped designer shirt. Still sporting a thick head of brown wavy hair, Joe took command of the situation. He made a rapid wave gesture, motioning the van into the long brick driveway. Content with how everything was falling into place, Joe looked at his wife and smiled. He too, at that moment, thought how beautiful Adela still is after 18 years of marriage. She anxiously arose from her lotus position, reminding Mr. Boynton of her statuesque frame and soft, silky, shoulder-length blonde hair. Even in blue jeans and a white t-shirt, Adela radiated class. Joe was a proud man who had much to be thankful for, and he cherished his family. Looking at his watch, Joe was pleased that the 3 movers arrived on schedule. Well, we made it. The 4-hour drive from Glendale Valley to Soaphead Bay was a breeze, mumbled the burly tattooed driver. As the other 2 men jumped down from the truck, it was apparent that they were anxious to get started unloading the Boyntons' worldly possessions. The youngest mover, wide as he was tall, would spit through his missing front tooth every time he cracked his pink bubble gum. Joe quickly moonwalked backwards a few steps when confronted face to face with his question, "Yo, Mr. B, where do you want this stuff to go?" Trying to avoid an unwanted spray of saliva, Joe began directing the crew. In the meantime, the couple living in the cottage style next door was beginning their day quite differently from their new neighbors. Wilbur and Eunice Gerlach certainly are an odd couple. Not only are they visually unique looking, they differ in every other possible way imaginable. Wilbur Gerlach is a tall, slim gentleman who was raised by a single mom on a Virginia farm. Little did he realize that his childhood upbringing, the mundane chores of harvesting farmland and cooking freshly grown vegetables with his mother Blanche, would shape his future into an upscale restaurant chef. Retired 8 years from a demanding career, the content stay-at-home Wilbur relished his free time on his own schedule. He would automatically rise every morning, relying on his internal clock. In anticipation of tending to his true love, Wilbur showered, hopped into his blue overalls, tucked in his plaid flannel shirt, and secured his pants from falling, not with a typical conventional belt, but a thick piece of rope. A younger Wilbur once left home for work donning a prestigious chef uniform. Instead, he conveys to all that his new gardening uniform is a comfortable fit. As the cock crowed in the early dawn, it signaled for Wilbur to begin his routine. He slipped quietly out of bed so as not to disturb his snoring wife. Wearing an adoring smile, Wilbur could not wait to pamper to his first love, his prize garden. Tiptoeing out of the back door, he was anxious to tend to his sprouting seedlings. With hose in hand, he would fantasize about sinking his teeth into the matured medley of flavorful vegetables. Watering and skillfully planted rows of tomatoes, zucchini, peppers, cucumbers, and lettuce was a welcome pleasure. On cue, Wilbur was startled out of his dreamlike state by the sound of Eunice calling him to make coffee. Well, dutifully, Wilbur obliged, grabbed a ripe pear from the backyard tree, and entered the house. Where did the last 8 years of peace and quiet go? He questioned to himself. At 65 years old, it became Eunice's turn to join the Senior Citizens Club. Just 3 days prior, the Belterre Middle School administrator honored Mrs. Gerlach with a retirement party. As Wilbur prepared pancakes for breakfast, he replayed in his mind the highlights of her special celebration. In her unintentionally obnoxious way, Eunice seemed to be floating on air in the school auditorium. She gleefully accepted all the phony compliments from her longtime competitors. Thrilled to have been the center of attention, Eunice proudly accepted a gold watch from the Teachers Association. 38 years of service educating sixth graders has finally come to a close. Now what? Wilbur emotionally wrestled with it. These new challenges fueled Wilbur's fear of losing his independence. He proceeded to reach into the kitchen cabinet for his 2 favorite clay plates. The older farmer proved that old habits die hard when he repetitiously placed the plates inside the preheated oven to keep warm his sunny-side-up eggs. The mastering of preparing a country-style breakfast was taught by his gifted Baptist mother. Wilbur acknowledged that breakfast was about to be served. He was a man of a few words, but nevertheless tried to make conversation with his wife. Eunice, remember my mother saying that the number 8 means new beginning? So what about it? Snapped the newly stayed-at-home wife. Well, Wilbur initiated. I'm 8 years your senior, been retired 8 years, and now you're retired after 38 years. No response except the sounds of his short, roly-poly, cranky wife shoveling down her meal. Whatever happened to the sweet, thin, adoring woman I once married, thought Wilbur. Their conversation came to an abrupt end with the sound of a determined knock at the door. Answer the door, Wilbur. I'm expecting Myrtle. Wilbur was reluctant to respond to Myrtle's forceful banging. Before he could catch his breath, the door thrust open, sending Myrtle flying into the living room. The overly made-up beautician tripped over her own 2 feet. Grabbing Eunice's arm to steady herself caused both women to lose their balance and fall to the floor. Seeing that the ladies were laughing, Wilbur chuckled. Myrtle, I had never seen such an entrance. Eunice's lack of response was replaced with a stern look. Myrtle, what in the world are you doing? Demanded Eunice. Tall, lean Myrtle jumped to her feet while struggling to lift her plump friend. I want to spy on your new neighbors. I'm curious to see what the new family looks like, blurted Myrtle. In a rush to get outside, Myrtle pushed Eunice out into the veranda. Eunice, don't you just love getting involved in other people's business? Myrtle grinned sheepishly while rubbing her palms together. She then leaned over her chair to pick up her red pocketbook. Eunice asked, what are you fishing for inside that bag? Determined not to miss 1 minute of the newly arrived neighbors' activities, Myrtle pulled out a pair of binoculars and began focusing them. Oh, Myrtle, you're so tacky. I just love it, chided Eunice. I know, Myrtle replied, wearing a devilish smirk. Before another word was spoken, the two ladies enjoyed a hearty belly laugh. Wilbur overheard their frivolous conversation and shook his head in disbelief. You both take the cake, a matched pair of real beauts, whispered Wilbur under his breath. What did you say? Demanded Eunice. Oh, nothing special, dear. I said it's a beautiful day, he answered meekly. Wilbur walked away from the veranda, contemplating his future with his newly retired wife. In a sarcastic tone, rolling his eyes, he whispered into the thin air, welcome to my new life. So much for a new beginnings. The busy activity of the unsuspecting Boytons certainly was entertainment for all the nosy neighbors. Little did anyone realize the new family settling into the tall Victorian house was not alone. The kids carefully carried the boxes to their bedrooms on the second floor. As of yet, they hadn't inspected the third floor above. Upstairs, onto the top floor, was a chilling, dark secret. Beyond the attic door, and hiding inside the musty room covered with cobwebs, was something so magical, hoping to be discovered. A secret that will forever change their lives.